very warm welcome to each and everyone present here with us today. The topic for today's group discussion is new education policy, pros and cons. As William Pollard rightly said, without change, there is no innovation, creativity, or incentive for improvement. Those who initiate change will have a better opportunity to manage the change that is inevitable. I believe that the new education policy is an essential stepping stone in the path towards the development of our country, India. The primary focus of NEP is to ensure universal access to affordable education and equal opportunities for all the children in the country. It also aims at providing quality holistic education, including vocational education for preschool to grade 12, which is an absolute method to tackle unemployment and thus tackling poverty.
Yes, I also think that changing the education policy was a bit necessary. And one of the things which I like the most about this new education policy is that they are introducing coding from sixth class onwards. Like we all know how much importance coding has in present world. So this is clearly a great step. And the other thing which I didn't like, which I do not like about this new education policy is that they have introduced this three language formula. Like they are saying that okay, so let me start from the beginning. So there were two drafts of NEP. In the first draft they said okay, there are three languages and Hindi is compulsory. So as soon as they released this draft, all the non-Hindi speaking states like Tamil Nadu, Telangana, they started protesting. So they realized their mistake and they rephrased it in their second draft, saying that okay, now there will be three languages and two of them have to be in Indian language, and the third language the student or the school can choose by themselves. So consider the scenario: there is a school in Maharashtra, let's say, or so if it is in Maharashtra, so one of the language which it will be offering would be Marathi because it is a regional language, and again it is an Indian language. And let's say the other language which it is offering is English. So now the student has a choice of selecting a third language, but the language should be an Indian language. So now most of the students will choose Hindi unless if someone belongs to a particular region. So she or might opt for his own regional language. So again, I think this is some sort of a burden on students. Also, by introducing a third language, you are just increasing burden on students. Like already they are having five subjects, and you are introducing a third one, a sixth one. So you are just increasing the stress level in students.
But I'd also like to continue regarding Anirudh's point. First of all, include the mother tongue in school. They introduce the mother tongue in every club, in every schools, and India is already facing a severe teacher shortage that is leading to a high quality teaching. The number of students in the country is very high regarded as the ratio of teachers. And in addition to this, finding the qualified teaching staff is a challenging in itself. Next comes to the challenge of Hindi English mother tongue. Say example during maths, social science textbook in each mother tongue in a curriculum task itself. As you know, not everyone can teach maths in mother tongue because circles, goal, like that. And it is entirely understandable that the government want to play a similar role with Germany, China, etc. Their foreigners have to learn the language to able to manage the country better. And at the same time that NEP is marked in that way. It does not mean that 22 languages are operating in India instead of one national language in other countries. And that's my point.
But in but in my opinion, the establishment of new education policy is correct because the main aim of new education policy is to achieve 100% youth and adult literacy. By the year 2030, it will be mandatory to have at least a 4-year BEd degree for joining the occupation of teaching. No student should be deprived of higher education due to financial inability. To make education inclusive, financial support will be provided to socially and economically disadvantaged. Till now, many higher education institutes are providing limited courses. With National Education Policy 2020, colleges would either fully be integrated into a university or converted into an autonomous degree giving institution. This allows faculty and institutional autonomy. Colleges will become multidisciplinary institutions by providing a wide choice of subjects. New education policy also aims to increase the growth enrollment ratio in the higher education, including the vocational education from 26.3% in 2018 to 50% in 2035. And it also aims to add 3.5 crore new seats to higher education institutions so that more and more students can take the benefit from it.
I agree with you. Everything has two aspects. So in this, I personally think that the national education policy of 2020 is really good because it's going to change the school system of 10 plus 2 to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, in which the students from the age group of 3 to 6 are also going to be studying. So I personally think that this is a good thing, and since a lot of developed nations are already using this kind of technique, I think it's personally better than 10 plus 2.
Dr. Kalam used to say the purpose of education is to make good human beings with skill and expertise. Enlightened human beings can be created by teachers. That is what the new education policy brings to us. Before the implementation of new education policy, one of the first and major criticism point is that our education system tries to fit students into three categories. That is science, commerce, and humanities. And that is very problematic. If you choose one stream, you cannot study the subject of other stream. For example, when I was in 11th, I chose the science stream, but I was helpless. Having hope for science stream, I could not study subjects like political science and economics because our previous education system does not allow me to do that. But now the government has changed this. Now students have more flexibility to choose their subject. After the implementation of this policy, a student can study political science with physics and chemistry with history. A student can study science, arts, as well as commerce subject. So it is a great initiative by government.
I want to say that the government has done a great job of increasing the GDP. The percentage of GDP dedicated towards education, it was increased from 3% earlier to 6% now, and it's heartening that government finally recognized the importance of education. And the government has also started to phase out college affiliation, and autonomy will be granted to the small colleges, and same level of accreditation and regulation will be implemented for both private and government colleges. So that I think is a really good step moving forward, and many multidisciplinary higher education institution will also be established so the students have much more choice in what they want to study for the higher education. So that I think is a really good step because it diversifies the choice one have for the future.
I want to say something
Yeah,
then. According to the National Education Policy 2020, students willing to complete their graduation have to study for 4 years, while one can easily complete his or her diploma degree in 2 years. This might encourage the people of leave the of course midway. According to the National Education Policy 2020, students of the private schools will be introduced to the English at the much earlier age than the students of the government schools. The academic syllabus will be taught in the respectively religion language of government school student. This is one of the major new education policy. Dark webs are this will increase the number of students uncomfortable in communicating in English, thus winding the gap between sectional of societies.
Yeah, actually, the new education policy in 2020 came after 30 years and is all set to change the existing academic system of India or other countries with the purpose of making it at par with the international standard of academics. The government of India aims to set up the NEP by the year 2040. Till the targeted year, the key point of the plan is to implement it one by one. The proposed reform by new education policy will come into effect by the collaboration of the central and state government. According to this, there are many benefits also. The students of the private schools will be introduced into English at a much earlier age than the students of government schools. The academic syllabus will be taught in the respective regional languages of the government school students. This is one of the major new education policies drawback. This will increase the number of students uncomfortable in communicating in English, thus widening the gap between sections of the societies.
Okay, a lot of you said that the introduction of mother tongue or the introduction of English is a hindrance. The students will have to face a lot of stress. But don't you think that learning an extra language is always an added advantage?
Yes, I don't think it's an advantage if the students are not able to, because the ability to learn language is very much more present in the students at a very lower age. Like there's a study that tells if the child reaches about 10 years, then the ability of learning a new language decreases significantly, like by 50 or 60%. He can't learn a new language after at a certain age. Before that, it's easy for him. So, if English was standardized and introduced from earlier age, yeah, it would be difficult for the child, but it will definitely benefit him later on, because then he wouldn't have to like waste so much time in the later on classes just understanding what the teachers are saying later on.
Okay, what you are saying is, I have a point regarding the same. The government is saying that this is called multilingualism, which is like language learning more languages will increase your knowledge. So I have one question. Tell me one thing. Like, is it a language which increases your knowledge, or is it a subject? Like, even a 5-year-old knows how to speak Hindi, but we can't accept him to know the entire literature of Hindi. So I don't think that this is this has more bad than this will do more bad than doing any good with the students.
But
Well, I think
but essentially you need a language to communicate. If you learn more languages, you will
Okay,
be able to
I think
communicate better.
NEET 20 has many merits, but it also has its share of demerits, which I would like to discuss. The first policy, as Akshat mentioned the school system. The 10 plus 2 system will be divided into 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 format. And this structure starts at the age of 3 years. The problem with this policy is making it compulsory for a 3-year-old to enroll in a school doesn't seem right. When the ideal age to start school in most countries is anywhere between 4 to 6 years of age. If you start school early and dump on them to study language, it's been proven that it may cause mental health problems for the child. And the second policy is vocational training. The NEEP 2020 states that at least 50% of learners going through the school and higher education system shall have exposure to vocational education. The problem with this policy is I don't understand what the kind of vocational training exposure you provide to class 6 students according to the requirement of that village or locality. However, I do have an idea. Who will be the 50% who will be opting or made to opt for the modern child labor? It doesn't make sense. You make shortage of plumber, electrician, carpenters, workers, laborers, industrial laborers in the particular village or locality. You will have the children trained on that accordingly, and this is called child labor. The vocational training exposure at such an early age will also lead to school dropouts. Once they are skilled, the children from the economically and socially backward classes will move towards earning based on the skill due to the poverty, or will be pushed in the direction by the oppressors, thereby systematically denying higher education to the poor and socially backward classes. That's my point.
Yes,
New
I also
education
think the
policy.
same that okay, you continue.
New education policy is a good move because it is proposed. It is being proposed after a long time. Last policy was proposed in 1986, so it is coming after a long time. However, the Ministry of Education seeking help from schools and teachers. They are organizing many events to gather data. Recently, they have launched a competition for teachers to propose challenges, different themes in different areas. The first comes the problem of including mother tongue in schools. The qualified teaching staff is a challenge in itself. and the next challenge is introduction of coding from sixth grade. If you don't know English, how are you going to develop coding skills? It is not like a hardcore coding, but there they may be handicapped over there, and you need to have a proper system. As majority of the parents may not be able to offered a laptop for their children to develop coding skills, and many of the schools don't even have a computer lab, or even though if they have only limited computers for sharing among students.
I think government is starting giving more fund for solving this problem. They are starting having computers labs in the government school as well.
Yeah, they have computer labs in a small school as well.
Yes, so I was saying that I agree with Adish that introducing this vocational training thing will increase the level of school dropouts, because if a student belongs from a poor background, then his or her priority is to take a job as quickly as he can. So obviously, if you are giving him or her some skill, then he will learn that skill and will take any low-paying job or any job, because it is his or her priority. So I also agree on this point.
But I don't think that it's that big of a problem, because if they don't learn skill, I don't think that if they study till 12th standard and even pursue higher education, do you really think that they?
No, I'm not saying that vocational training is completely wrong. What I think is that they should also consider concessing the fee of the schools. I know that government school has negligible fee, but not all schools have negligible fees. Like, they should put some restrictions on private schools and all. And like, if the fees is low, then the student will be willing to complete their higher studies or even their school studies itself.
Yeah, I do agree with Anirudh, but I would like to include that the key goal of the new education policy is to increase investment in education sector. See, they told us that according to this policy, they would increase 6% of the GDP according to national education policy. The center and the states will work together to increase the public investment in the education sector to reach 6% of the GDP at the earliest. You know, they aims to do this in like 2030, I believe. Yeah, they will try their best to reach their goal, that they would increase this public investment through working together. So yeah.
As
Yeah,
Abhishek mentioned,
after 12th, there is a multiple
their goal
entry
to increase
program.
the
It means that you started a BTech degree, and 1 year later, you realize that you do not want to continue it because uh, of might some reason. All the subject you have studied for 1 year, you can take their credit and get it transferred to another degree. So this is extremely useful according to me.
So what I think is you're not emphasizing on the skill part, right? This new education policy is emphasizing on the skill part more. You know, it is bringing out, it is asking schools to develop the skill-oriented learning. And what I think is education is nothing without adapting the particular skills which is needed to which are needed to survive, right? So what I think is this new education policy is a boon for Indian students, and it is a boon because of the skill oriented learning rather compared to the original traditional learning which was supposed to be there in the education system. And what it does is it has introduced coding from class 6th onwards. So yes, this is I mean, this is a good step, since all, like in our age also, we all are, most of us are scared of coding, right?
Yeah, I agree with Anish. As we know that the present era is the modern era. All work finished with technical tools. So the new education policy is an emphasis to use technical tools like computers, online courses, IT tools, many other social media platform which are extremely useful to enhance knowledge. The new era the new education policy will set up a good computer labs in schools, and there will be a digital board so that students will learn about technical tools at an early age. So we can say it will also improve the Digital India mission. It will change our schools and education and represent as a developed nation school. So that's the major key point here for the new education policy that I believe is a perfect way of uh, representing our India as an educated, or I might say as a developed country.
Yes, you are right. It also reduces that rote learning also. Because if we look today's education system, it is only based on what we say is extremely rote learning or full on rectification. So it also reduces that means if we means we have learned physics in our 9th, 10th, and 11th, 12th class also. But if we ask any student to please change the bulb of our home, then it means he might not be able to change it. Why? Because we have not taught us to use that application in our daily life. So it will also help us in use our knowledge in our daily life or in education in practical domain also.
Also, some points of this policy said that this policy is very theoretical. It does change things theoretically, but to implement them in practically in real life is going to be very long, drawn, and difficult process, because there are so many government schools where children in the fifth class have no teachers and infrastructures is not available in schools. The students are not educated properly and they drop out early. So this is very long driven process of this policy is to be introduced in India.
Okay, so with the introduction of new education policy of 2020, many changes have been made, and one of those is the discontinuation of the MPhil course. Even though there are many drawbacks of the new education policy, the merits are more in number. It is believed by many that by implementing these changes, the Indian academic system will be taken a step higher.